All right, today for our sourdough loaf, you're going to need some freshly fed starter, flour, salt, a bowl. If you have a sourdough stirrer, I think that's what it's called, a bread lame. I like to use these silicone mats to cook my bread on. If you don't have that, you can use parchment paper and a Dutch oven. If you don't have a bread lame or a mixer stick, sourdough mixer stick, I can't remember the technical term for this, you can use a KitchenAid, or you can even just mix it by hand. So let's get going. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started with the making of our sourdough. What you're going to want to do is you are going to take a cup of your sourdough starter, and you'll see it decompress when you start to get it out of the bowl. Scoop. I use a generous cup when I make my sourdough. So like heaping. This is just how I do it. There are lots of recipes you can find out on the internet. I am not a sourdough expert by any means. This is just the recipe that I have found and love. In your bowl, you are then going to add three cups of flour. So let's measure this guy out. As you can see, I use a lot of flour. And I like to use organic, unbleached, non-GMO flour, just in alignment with how we eat and our lifestyle, getting as clean of ingredients as possible. So you're gonna add your 3 cups of flour into your bowl. After you put your 3 cups of flour in, you are going to mix 1.5 cups of lukewarm water. If you are in a cooler state like I am here in Utah, it is snowing, I will use a little bit warmer, more warm than lukewarm type of water, just to help make our dough really hot. All right, and this is where you can go ahead and use your sourdough stirrer or your KitchenAid mixer, or you can even use a wooden spoon to go ahead and mix up all of that dough. I like to use my KitchenAid with the flat spatula attachment on it, just because it mixes the dough really well and makes it a really nice consistency. You're going to mix this for about a minute. All right, so I just turned off my mixer and you can see how the consistency of the dough is. I'm gonna get a spatula and scrape all of that into a ball. Okay, the thing that I have found with any sourdough is it is so sticky. And that's normal. You want your dough to be very wet and very sticky. So we'll take it out of here. Let's see if you can see how sticky that is. So perfect. And like I said, I will just take the dough, I will scrape it all off to the sides, and then kind of form it into somewhat of a ball shape. It doesn't have to be perfect. I kind of just glump it all together. Glump it, is that even a word? It is now. It's my word. All right, so that's what it'll look like. Then from here, you want to let your dough rest for about 4 hours on the countertop. If you have a cheesecloth or a dish towel, I have one of these like thinner dish towels. I'll get it wet with really warm water and I'll throw this over just to help keep the dough moist. All right, so I have gotten my dish towel wet and I have it over the top of my bowl. I am going to leave my bowl on the counter for a few hours, probably 2 to 4 hours. I'm going to be checking it throughout the day. The biggest key to have a successful sourdough loaf is it takes time. So I always make my sourdough loaves on days when I am not working or on the weekends when we don't have anywhere to be during the day. So let your dough sit out on the counter. You want it to sit and you're going to let it rise. It should double in size over the next 2 to 4 hours. Keep an eye on it, because you don't want it to get over fermented. You don't want to get it too runny. And I'll kind of show you the consistency of it as we go. Again, if you live in a cold state like I do here in Utah where it is snowing, what you can do is you can put your loaf or your start of your loaf in the oven with just the light on in your oven. That light is going to provide enough heat to keep your loaf super happy and to help it rise. And you can do this with any kind of bread. Just put your bread dough in the oven with the light on and then be checking on it to see how it's doing, and you want to watch for it to be increasing in size. So we'll check back here in a few hours and we'll get our loaf going. All right, we are back. I just picked up my kids from school and check out our dough, you guys. Look at how much bigger that got. I love it. So the next process that we need to do is we need to add the last few cups of flour. So we're gonna add 2 cups of flour to our sourdough here. Go play downstairs. Okay. Thank you. Okay, a little bit more. All right, there's 1. That's 1.5 actually. And then it's rough. I had to put my apron on. Mine apron? Yeah, mine apron. So that I don't make a mess. If you cook or bake like I do, it's a little messy. Okay, so we put our last 2 cups of flour in there, and then we need to add our salt, which is 2.5 teaspoons of salt. The trick is, there it is. 2.5. Here we go. 2.5 teaspoons, yeah. I always like to double check, and sometimes my brain, because we're neurodivergent over here. It's not just my son. All right, and then this is where I like to use my sourdough stirrer or spatula. I can't remember the name of it. I should really figure that out. I will link it in the comments. Just ordered it off of Amazon. But I will just work in this flour just by stirring it all in with the dough that we had sitting for a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna get it all mixed in, and it's normal. This, do you see how there's extra flour in my bowl? Very normal. As I work this in, I just try to fold all the flour into the dough as best I can, and any excess that I have, I am going to knead it in on my countertop. So, all right, so before I dump this dough out onto my counter, I'm just gonna very lightly flour my countertop so it doesn't stick really bad. You can also just grease it. I have used a spray greaser, pan spray before. I'm just gonna dump everything from my bowl out. Check that out. Once it gets to the point where you don't have as many crumbles coming off, that's when you know your dough is pretty much done with the kneading process. So what I will do is I will just work it into a little ball shape, and we are going to get our proofing bowl. A proofing bowl is excellent. It kind of allows air to get in to your loaf so that it can rise and keep it warm at the same time. If you don't have a proofing bowl, which I didn't up until about a month ago, you don't need one. You can use the bowl that you mixed your dough in. You can just use that because it's already lined with flour, or you can grease it if you want to. Throw your dough in there because you're going to want to let it rise. This first rise or proofing session that we're going to do is going to be 90 minutes. All right, so I have my proofing bowl. This is what it looks like. I am just going to put my sourdough into my proofing bowl. And then I use the same rag through this whole process. I just re-wetted it so it's nice and moist. And then I'm gonna cover that. And again, same thing. You can leave this out on the counter if your house is warmer. My house tends to run a little bit cool. So I'll leave it out on the counter, see how it does. And if I feel like it's a little bit sluggish, which I don't think it will because this is a very active starter. But if I feel like the dough isn't rising over these next 90 minutes, I will pop it in the oven with the light on. So it has been about an hour and a half. We are headed to a therapy appointment today, actually. Any neurodivergent mom knows how crucial these therapy appointments are. So I've been letting my dough sit for a while. You can see it's grown a little bit. I'll probably, for this next proofing session, just put it in my oven. But what you're gonna do now, so what we're gonna do is we're going to do our first pull and stretch of our dough. This is what is going to help strengthen your dough. Oh, there we go. And make it nice and light and airy. So just flour your surface. Then you're just gonna pat your dough out. And I like to just pat it out flat, just like this. Kind of push all those little air bubbles out. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the edge, you're gonna pull and fold it in, and then tuck it. And then pull, fold it in, tuck it. And pull. You're creating a seam on the inside of your dough. So you want to really push down and get that. And then from here, I'll just kind of, any extra corners, I just shove them. I fold them into the middle of my dough here. And then I'll just kind of give it a good pinch so you can see, got like a nice little seam along here. Then you'll turn it seam side down. That's when I kind of just shape it a little bit. Like so. And then if you wanted to, you can cut this in half if you want to make 2 different loaves, which I think we're going to give a try today. So I just have one of these fancy little dough spatulas and cutters. I don't know what the official word is. Again, I'm sorry. And I think I just picked this up at, Smith's. And then just kind of shape your dough from there. So we're gonna make 2 different loaves of sourdough and I'm so excited. Okay, and kind of, I've created a couple of different seams with this, but that's okay. You just kind of want to shape it and make sure your seam is on the bottom of your roll. So there's one. Isn't it so cute? That is your first stretch and pull session. Again, you don't have to cut your loaf in half. You can make 1 big loaf or you can make 2 smaller loaves. And we are now gonna let them proof for another 90 minutes and then we'll do another session of the stretch and pull and fold. You can do that 2 to 3 more times after this, just to really let your dough rise before you bake it. So when we come back, we're gonna be baking. All right, so the first rising session is over and I wanted to show you guys my 2 loaves that I've got. Let's see, there's the one. You can see how much bigger it has gotten, and then there's the second one in my proofing bowl. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to pat them out flat on my countertop and I'm gonna do a pull and fold 1 more time and then let them rise again before we shape them and get them ready to pop in the oven. So. So we have finished our final round of stretching and pulling and letting it rise. And we're gonna gently pull this loaf out of this bowl. So here we are. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to just let that sit on my countertop for a second. What you wanna do now is you wanna go ahead and preheat your oven to 500 degrees. And I like to put my Dutch oven in the oven while it preheats. So that way, when my oven is to 500 degrees, my Dutch oven is to 500 degrees as well. I have just found that it helps the bread cook really quite nicely. While my oven is preheating, I'm gonna go ahead and put my slashes in my loaf. If you have a bread lame, you can use it. This is what it looks like. If not, you can use a serrated knife. But what you're going to do is you're going to want to cut your sourdough. I usually just do one cut. And you want it fairly deep because you want to allow enough of an opening to let your bread expand out. And sometimes it's fun just to do cute little designs in it. And I will say, if you are able to invest in a bread lame, definitely do it. It helps if you like to do fun, cute little designs. So just kind of what it looks like. You can see the slits a little bit. So those will open up and allow for the bread to expand as it cooks. And you always want your seam down. Okay, we'll do the same thing. Just shoo. Nice little cut. Some cute little mini cuts. Okay, now we're just gonna wait for our oven to preheat. And I will get my little silicone bread basket. This is what I will put. I'll put my loaf of bread on here and I'll put it in my Dutch oven. If you don't have these, you can use parchment paper as well. I highly recommend it instead of just putting the loaf directly, especially if you don't have an acrylic lined Dutch oven. Definitely recommend using some parchment paper or investing in these just so it's easier to get your loaf out of your Dutch oven when it is done cooking. If you want a crunchier top to your loaf, you can spray the loaves with warm water before you put them in the oven, or if you don't have a spray bottle like I don't, you can just kind of gently rub some warm water across the top. Or you don't have to. I usually don't use warm water, and it still makes for a really nice crunchy, crust on the outside. Our oven is to temp. I didn't want to take those off. That was an accident. That would be bad. So I'm going to take my lid off, set it somewhere carefully so we don't burn ourselves or anything else. Then we take our little bread basket and we're just going to set our loaf inside our Dutch oven. And then I like to cook my sourdough for about 10 to 15 minutes with the lid on, and then I'll take the lid off and cook it for an additional 10 to 15 minutes. It should be about 25 to 30 minutes total cooking time. All right, our loaf is all done cooking. I cooked it for about half an hour, and here it is. Look at how beautiful that is. We're just gonna let it cool for a few minutes. You want it to be completely cooled before you cut into it. And as far as storing it, you can wrap it loosely and keep it out on the counter if it even lasts that long, for a couple of days, or you can freeze it and it'll make it last even longer. But enjoy it, make a nice warm pot of soup and enjoy. Thanks for joining today, guys. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and turn on notifications so that you can catch our next video next week.